Hello. Um, should be live. Everything should be good. Yep, you should be hearing audio now. I'm also on the phone with my friend, but you can't hear her. So, she's sick and doesn't want to be on the stream anyways, so I might occasionally be talking to nobody. It's fine. This is a test stream. Everything is fine. I thought I completed all of Hitman Go, except that it doesn't register the achievement of completing the thing without hints, and I didn't use any hints. Oh, okay, now I did. Now it's decided that I've completed the game without hints. Okay, so I was wondering if I broke it. Alright, so I'm done Hitman Go, so I'll just start from the beginning and show everyone the game. I'll talk about some things too, I guess. But, one of the things I was thinking about doing was kind of like going through Mirror's Edge one day and talking about the game design and why I like it as an example of like not holding your hand, which everyone's talking about now because of Breath of the Wild, right? But they're talking about it like I don't like the whole Breath of the Wild doesn't hold your hand because it's for adults and it's not a kiddie game, because like so many games for adults or teenagers or older or more mature people still hold your hand with these 2-hour tutorials. So like it's not just Nintendo that does it. Okay, so here's the first level. I'll turn on some music if people like. But so okay, so basically this first level just teaches you how to play. There's no instructions. They're just like go forward, and you kind of figure out how to go forward. Done. Level 2. So now they introduce one guard for you. Is that me? Oh, good. Oh, that's annoying. Sorry, I'm just talking to my friend. She was trying to stream me and then I heard my own voice, which is a little disconcerting. I'm getting used to hearing my own voice because of all sorts of things, like because of having to edit one of my streams constantly and because of being recorded for social work. I hate it, but people seem to be okay with my voice, so whatever. Okay, so here now, this is trial and error. If you figure out, like I figured out that this guy would take me if he saw me. But so this teaches you he can't see you here, right? Because you're forced to move into this spot. So if you're like completely don't know what you're doing, then you move here and you can see and you learn something. If you're like me, you realize, okay, so he can only see one spot ahead. It doesn't look like he can see from the side. So I'm gonna move over here. Right, and then so you learn he can't see to the side. This guy can only see to the front, and you can only take one space. So, and like technically this is tutorial 2, but it's not hand-holding tutorial. Like you learn from your own mistakes. It's just set up in a way to help you learn. Yeah, so okay, now it's more complicated of these blue guards. Obviously, yeah, I'm starting from, no, I'm starting from the beginning. And then so if you go here, then you get taken. So you need to figure out if you go here and take him, then he takes you, or then he takes you. So there's a guy here, and we're going to take him out. It's interesting how this game is like all about taking people, like it's all about like assassinating people, even though you're not supposed to assassinate people in the game. So anyways, you've taken all of them out, then you move on. And you could also, if you didn't learn your lesson the last time, you could be taken a few times and then learn. And part of the whole like Nintendo hard thing, and part of why like Mirror's Edge really works in terms of not holding your hand, is because Mirror's Edge has like no load time after you die. So it's like you die and you appear basically where you started almost immediately. And so like they has load time between stages if you restart a stage, but within the stage if you die, like, so it's easy to just keep trying. And then in this game it's the same way, because there's no load times after you die. It's not really frustrating to learn that way, whereas for some other games, like if there's like a 30-second stage, if there's like a 30-second load time, or worse, like a minute load time, then it's really annoying. Okay, so these like all these people don't count as people. For some reason you can like run around murdering everybody, and none of these random doodads, these plot details, they don't do anything. So okay, the two women swim in this pool, it has nothing to do with anything. Everyone's frozen in time. Okay, so obviously you can't go here, and that's the only way to the exit, or he'll take you. So you go, hey, what's this rock thing? Let's go investigate this. What is this? Oh, it's rocks. And if you're smart, then you figure out if you throw a rock, they're going to be attracted to the rock. And then you're like, what does that do? So you've got some options. If you throw it here, nothing will happen. You can learn that. If you throw it here, oh, nope, didn't work. So you gotta restart. So you go up here. You could throw it here or here. So let's throw it here.
What?
Huh? Turns around. So now he's distracted and he's facing the completely wrong direction. If you threw it here, you could still get him, because he would just walk over here, and then you could get him from whatever side he's not looking at. Well, I guess actually if he was looking this way, you'd be screwed. So, but anyways, so okay, get him, gone. So you learn something. You learn the rock distracts guards. So now we are in here, multiple guards and multiple rocks. And this is the first time they introduce multiple options. So you don't have to do all of these at the same time. Like, you can do them one at a time. So you don't have to, obviously you can't do no kill and kill all enemies at the same time. So so if you test it out, it's right here. Oop. Everyone's very distracted. Except one of them is now facing this direction, or two of them are facing that direction. So... oh, no, that didn't do anything. Never mind. So now you're screwed. And you could learn something here, where you're like, oh no, see? So they all have to be facing in the opposite direction, or one of them will take you. So let's throw it there. Actually, this is a bad idea. That's not gonna work. Yeah, because that guy's now blocking me. Yeah, that was a bad idea. Anyway, so the thing is that even if you screw up, it's not like not that annoying because it's like, okay, you get taken and then you just start again. You attract other guards and then you attract them again. So they are interested now. I'm just gonna hide around this bush. So, okay, so you can see how you could have the no-kill option, where you just walk right past them. And you get to the exit. Or you can choose to murder them all, in which case you learn that if you take all of them on this thing, you kill them all at once. I'm not sure how that works, but if all of them are in one square, you can take them all. I guess he just garrots all 3 of them at once. It's interesting because if multiple units are on the same spot when you use the sniper rifle, you also kill them all, and I've always wondered how that worked. Like, do you just shoot a bullet through all of their heads? This is actually kind of neat. Yeah, this game is really interesting. Like, it's a really neat board game idea. It's very strategic, and it also is like it's forgiving enough where, like, because you don't, like, it doesn't suck if you die because you don't have to wait for a loading screen. So you can just keep trying and learn that way if that's how you learn, which is how I learn. Okay, so you've got multiple rocks, multiple peoples. So what if you do this? Track those 4. And now you've got that, but you can't move anywhere, so you track them. So okay, so now all grouped and they're not looking to the side. So what are your options? Level complete, 5 turns, no kill. So obviously, if you murder them all here, you fail the no kill. But that would be the easiest way, right? You move here, move there, you kill them all, and then you're free to proceed to the exit. But if we want to go no kill, actually I think if you want to go no kill, I've kind of screwed it up because there is no way for me to not to no kill. No, there is. Never mind. I'm wrong. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you just attract them. They move out of the way. That guy's not gonna see you. I forgot how far it goes. Never mind. Never mind. I'm silly. Okay, so there you fulfill the no kill. There's also 5 turns or fewer, which is just the fastest way just to be to kill them and run to the exit. Moving on. So I was looking at that Nintendo alternate timeline. I've been talking about it, Morning Songs, because I'm so fascinated by it, but I don't know if I'm just annoying you. But I'm fascinated by it because it's like, it's a really... Okay, so here you have a target. This is like your first target one. And if people don't know what I'm talking about their Ready Player 2 timeline, which is apparently famous enough that it's on TV Tropes page. And apparently it's enough of an authorship thing that one of the creators of it actually term searches it on Twitter and then talks to you if you don't like it. I mean, he's not rude, but I hate when people term search their own stuff and they're like, I'm sorry you don't like my work. I try my best to be inclusive. And I'm like, oh God, I wasn't talking to you. One of those takedown cutscenes you have in Human Revolution. Yeah, it's probably like that where he's like murdering everyone. Low cost death is an important thing in hard games. Yeah, I think so. I think like if you want people to learn without like massive tutorials, that's a good way. So okay, so we've got different guards now. They force you to move forward. Oh, so you learn. They're like rooks. They move forward. So okay, we can't go this way. If you go this way, it'll kill you, as you probably guessed. If you haven't guessed, then you can learn. So so these guards go sideways, but as you learn, they only go sideways. They don't, like, so this forces you this way, this forces you this way, and then so you go here, and then you learn, oh, he hits the end, turns around, not gonna get you. So what do? You go this way. So the Nintendo Power, like not Nintendo, their Nintendo Alternate Universe with their SNES stuff. I think I'm doing something wrong. Oh. Yeah, okay. I think I screwed up. Anyways, so their whole alternate universe thing where it's like what if the Super Nintendo CD had happened with the PlayStation thing? And to put aside like that given all the factors it probably wouldn't have, the whole imagination is okay, they cooperated. They decide to put aside the differences and cooperate. And it kind of becomes a fantasy scenario where it's like, besides the fact that they've decided the thing is PlayStation powered and therefore like kind of ushers in everything. And the problem with the timeline is from there on, because they've decided it's PlayStation powered, everything leaps forward. The Sega Saturn is the N64, and then the N64 is the Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast now labeled the Katana is the PS2, and it's just somehow everything got more powerful, except the Xbox. But the Xbox had to see is exactly the same power. It's like the Xbox came from our universe and was like, what the fuck just happened? But yeah, so the dream, and the problem is I think that the scenario is really interesting, but gets bogged down in a lot of wish fulfillment, like. Okay, so here you can kill your target, or you can go for the briefcase, because the briefcase is also a thing, and you'll learn that in later missions, like the briefcase is just a bonus. It's just an optional thing. Kill your marks 14 tiers or collect briefcase, and if you if you want to get the briefcase, you're gonna have to do something different, obviously. But you're gonna kill your target. There, you murder your target. That's the end of the stage. Apparently, it's no big deal that you have all these security guards behind you. You killed your target while he was playing tennis. This little tennis player doesn't know this. Okay, you haven't? Alright, so I know the whole timeline and the sequel timeline. They made a sequel because it was so popular, because they ended it in the year 2000, and then so everyone's like, what happens next? So now we enter this like more ridiculous scenario of the present. And the biggest problem is the further you get into the future, the more the timeline could completely diverge, because it's completely impossible to predict at some point how everything's going to look. But the problem is that it's essentially a dream scenario where Nintendo gives you all of the Nintendo nostalgia stuff you love and all of the stuff you love, except they become grown up also, because Sony forced them to put adult Mortal Kombat on their system, which Nintendo would totally not just break off the agreement of Sony for. And that forced them to defend it in front of Congress, and therefore Nintendo became the advocacy of censorship, which leads to another weird fantasy scenario, which is that Nintendo... This knocks down all of the moral guardians of the US, and like that'd be hilarious. Trish just suggested, she's my friend that you can't hear. She just suggested that as they get closer to the future, Nintendo will completely change. Like, given the way that they've done this ridiculous scenario, where it's like, oh, now they're the defenders of video game streaming and protecting people from takedowns. And, like, totally they would do that in the scenario where Nintendo becomes this dream company that does everything they want and tells mom to leave them alone and hands off their video games. And they get adults everything. And it's like, the thing is that they decided that Secret of Mana CD... like the Secret Mana CD, like with all of the content that was cut, which by the way doesn't necessarily make a better game. Like if you think about it, a timeline where George Lucas got to have his original vision of Star Wars and his wife didn't cut the movie would probably be much worse, and we would probably just feel like it's extremely bloated with 2 Death Star runs. But and like this whole idea that everything uncut is better. And I also would not have enjoyed Secret Man of multiple endings. I don't like games with multiple endings. They stress me out. Um, but yeah, so this idea that essentially the Secret Mana brings in the JRPG early because Secret Mana CD does to JRPGs what Final Fantasy VII did, and everyone in America falls in love with it because it's amazing cutscenes and amazing music, and like it becomes mainstream. And this idea, and I think there's also this thing, and one of the authors is a gamergator because he was talking about ethics and journalism, and that and kind of that like Gamergate was actually about journalism and everything. And it's like in this universe, gaming would have been so big that gaming news would be actually news, which isn't true. Like if you think about like Nintendo and Sony, which are incredibly proprietary already, like if they essentially had a monopoly on everything, Nintendo Power would be the only place you would get like video game news. They wouldn't give release copies to anybody. But anyway, so going back to Secret Mana CD revolutionizes everything. JRPGs start coming into America in droves. You get Final Fantasy V, you get Final Fantasy VI, you get another Secret Mana, you get Chrono Trigger, you get another Chrono Trigger, you get Earthbound. They seem to have decided that Earthbound's failure was just marketing, that it's not because it's such a throwback RPG that like yes, Earthbound's a great game, cult hits do not necessarily become mainstream. Like it's quirky and it's got this throwback system that wasn't going to probably get a large audience no matter what. But this is the dream scenario. Everyone loves JRPGs. Ashley from school loves JRPGs. You're cool in this universe now because you like anime, and uncensored anime came to America because Nintendo defeated all of the censors. And Sailor Moon was less popular, but it's paved the way for Neon Genesis Evangelion to be in America. One of the things about this timeline is that everything girls and women like is less popular, but it paves the way. Like, for example, Titanic is less popular, and it paves the way for another Terminator by James Cameron. And Sailor Moon is less popular. Yeah, like as Trish said, like it's amazing how much sexism creeps in when you're trying to be not sexist. Like the guy talked to me on Twitter, and he's like, he sounds sincere that he was trying not to be sexist, and he was. In like the thing about the timeline is it imagines like video games are going to be mainstream, which again, video games have always been mainstream, but it's always this sort of idea that because I was bullied for video games, therefore people didn't play video games. Like I was unpopular, therefore the thing I liked was unpopular. So so what happens is they imagine like because Nintendo like teamed up with Sony, because video games grew up, because they fought the censors, all of this stuff is really, really popular now. And so Secret Mana brings the JRPG to America early. Everyone loves it. Video game TV shows continue to be a massive thing, but more adult. So you get like adult Zelda TV show. It's and it paves the way for video game cartoons everywhere. And the reason James Cameron didn't make another Terminator is that he did not want to. I know, like seriously, there's a lot of problems with the timeline where they sort of think things happened for reasons other than why they did. And so anyway, so the point is that video games are super popular and adult, and you got all the things you wanted, like the fact that the idea that in the 90s, right, when FMV CDs just made so much crap, instead it was like, oh, we're just gonna get all the PS games, and we're gonna get these awesome Super Nintendo games, and like Super Mario World 2 would come out for the CD, like when they didn't make Super Mario, and that's not Yoshi's Island, it's a sequel to Super Mario World that's essentially new Super Mario Brothers sort of. And it's like, why did that come out early? Like why did Nintendo, how could Nintendo have released this like a year after when they were not working on this in the real timeline as far as I know? And everything is like this we would get this except it'd be better. And it's like at no point does games not exist, which is weird because when it keeps diverging, it stops be like at some point you wouldn't get the games you originally got, but for some reason everything you liked still comes out. Nintendo becomes this adult super company, and it starts like essentially Trish's best description of the story is Nintendo gets eaten from the inside out by Sony. That's essentially what their dream scenario is, except that you still get Mario 64 for some reason. You still get you still get you still get Ocarina of Time for some reason. You still get Majora's Mask for some reason, which is like the one game that probably would definitely not exist in this scenario because they would want to be grown up even more. And then they start like just having no idea, where they're just like, oh well, Sega Saturn would get these games for no reason, and the Nintendo 64 PlayStation Ultra thing, which has the power of a Dreamcast, like Final Fantasy 7, like it's funny when they're like, oh, Final Fantasy 7 would come out and it would still have the same impact. And it's like, no, it wouldn't. Not when you've decided that the JRPG full motion video thing happened 3 years earlier and that Secret Mana ushered it in. Like the whole world is no longer gonna be that interested in, it's not gonna be groundbreaking. Anyway, so Final Fantasy 7 has multiple endings now for some reason, and you can save Eris, of course. And then they murder Miyamoto, which is like it's just like, because this entire thing is about them being sort of ashamed of their childhood. Like they like Nintendo, but they want Nintendo to be cool so they didn't get mocked for it. So it's like Miyamoto dies for no reason. He just, they decide in this timeline somehow the butterfly effect meant, and I hate when they use the butterfly effect because it's just like, you can't just explain everything with the butterfly effect. You can't just say, oh, the butterfly effect would mean that gets hit by a car. Well, unless you explain it, how that happened. So anyway, so he dies, and that explains why Nintendo commits to it. Like they don't have to explain that Miyamoto would be very, very unhappy with this like grown up Nintendo thing that's doing all the things he doesn't want. Like he was unhappy enough about GoldenEye, right? He wanted the whole ending where it turns out that they're actors and stuff, and instead like, and here it's like grown up blood and guts Nintendo. And so like they murder him just because it's convenient. In my opinion, it would be more interesting narrative wise, like because at some point you're just telling a story, right? At some point you're no longer logically doing anything, especially when you've decided like the Super Nintendo CD is the PlayStation and you've decided everything is fantasy, it doesn't matter. And you've decided for some reason the Super Nintendo like it prevents Columbine. Columbine doesn't happen. I can explain the butterfly effect of how Columbine doesn't happen, but it's ridiculous. Columbine doesn't happen. Tupac doesn't die. Kurt Cobain doesn't die. A whole bunch of people don't die, and I guess they decide to trade off Miyamoto for it, even though like that's not actually how the timeline works. It's not like the Superman thing where it's like, if you save someone's life, someone else has to die in their place. Eris's death was the very central part of Final Fantasy VII from the beginning. Like, they wrote the whole game around what if an important character dies in an ignoble way. Well, no, not in this universe. Multiple endings for everybody. Basically, like, this is the problem. They get bogged down in wish fulfillment, right? You know, like, everyone wished they could save Eris. So it's like, oh, in this universe, you can save Eris. Or people are like, oh, I wish, like, this game had this or this game didn't have that. Like Jar Jar doesn't exist in this universe in the Phantom Menace because, again, reasons, and the fan like they got bogged down in everything they wished for. Like there's this really creepy thing where they talked about like video games got so popular that MTV had like a video game show that was extremely popular, and they had all these MTV hosts and other celebrities who ended up being on it instead. And then like they got into really weird, creepy fantasies about these women that I guess they lusted after in the 90s, and like they were spraying each other with squirt guns. And then at one point it was like, oh, like she's at a like her boyfriend kisses her, and then she's surprised, but then she moans softly into the kiss. It was like porn, like they were writing porn. and and it's really creepy. And they also decided that Chris Chan, the guy who does those Sonichu comics, turned out to be the video game spree killer instead of Columbine. Like I found that kind of creepy too. Like why are you picking on this random real person? And um yeah, see, this timeline goes completely off the rails. I'm fascinated by it from a writing point of view because it's like, why did they make these decisions? And you can tell so much about their psyche, about like they kind of get lost in a couple of things. They get lost in shocking their audience because they're like they keep having these cliffhangers, like who's gonna die? It's this person. Oh, who's gonna live? It's this person. And the other thing is they kind of get lost into like what they want to happen, and it's like every game comes out except it's better than before. Like at no point did they say, well, because of this new direction, Donkey Kong Country doesn't happen or something. Instead, they're like, Donkey Kong Country happens for the Super Nintendo CD, but it's better. And it's like, Ocarina of Time happens, but there's multiple endings. And like, oh, and there was another Super Nintendo Link where if they go into detail about it. If you read it, it would never have come out because it's like, so it's a sequel to Link's Awakening that's heavy continuity, because this is what they want. They want heavy continuity, sex, and violence. That's what they want the Nintendo to grow up. And then there's like a mecha dungeon and a Neo Future dungeon, and then Link has to and then Link has like he's with Marin and Zelda. Did you disconnect? Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. So this guy's moving back and forth, so you're gonna have to distract him. So now you distract him. Oh, you don't have to be on the stream, Trish. So now he's moving back and forth again. If you pick up the suitcase, then it changes how, like if you did pick up the suitcase, you could just run behind him. So now you gotta distract him again. And you can move past him now. And yeah, so it sounds like a train wreck. Oh my god, you have to keep reading. Yeah, it's really goes off the rails, and you're gonna I think the reason I thought I was kind of annoying you, Morning Songs, is because you didn't respond, and I thought like maybe you had read the whole thing, because if you didn't, your response would be not like, if you got mad that the Super Nintendo CD RPG stuff wasn't true enough to what the timeline should be, you're gonna be so mad about everything to come, because it just goes like, and everything is still like, what, like if you're gonna be interesting and say, okay, this is like the dark timeline, like, okay, I'm not a fan of Nintendo, I'm not saying Nintendo's wonderful, but I'm saying if you want to tell a story, then the story, and especially the way they ended up telling it, then the story is essentially the king has a new advisor, right? Sony is the evil vizier whispering in the king's ear, and then you would have Miyamoto feeling increasingly alienated in the company that he helped build, because his projects would be being shelved. Like they talked about, like they canceled Animal Crossing, right? Because of course Animal Crossing made oh, I got achievement for taking too long. Animal Crossing made them feel kiddie about games again, so it was like oh, Animal Crossing doesn't happen. So it's like, okay, so you start putting all of Miyamoto's projects off and like giving his stuff to other people. Like you could tell a story where he starts feeling increasingly alienated and like leaves the company or something, only to return working for whatever future thing you imagine. But like that would be a good story, like, because at this point you're writing a story. So you could be interesting with the story, or you could be like more speculative about what you think will happen. But instead, they're just like everything still happens. The games that they liked for the N64 still, for some reason, come out for their Ultra, which is their and PlayStation 64 Dreamcast. Power of the Dreamcast with like all of that. And so Final Fantasy 7 is there, and like Ocarina of Time is there, except it's better. Majora's Mask for some reason still comes out, but it's better. Every game has all this added content and multiple endings and better graphics, and everything's like, oh yeah, and they, oh yeah, that's the other thing, that women like video games in this world because it's cool. Again, it's that Gamergate logic where the problem with women and video game culture is just that girls didn't like video games because it wasn't cool. If it was cool, Ashley from school would like video games and she'd like me. And and so it's like they were like, oh, the MTV hosts, like they the hot girls, they like video games, but they actually like no video games. They're not fake gamer girls. And the video game sexism never happened because better graphics, because for some reason graphics leapt ahead, as I told you, because the SNES CD was like the PlayStation. For some reason everything forwarded. So Tomb Raider, with the better graphics, did not need big boobs, as if that's the reason, and therefore without the big boobs, video game sexism didn't happen. Which is, again, like, it's such a tech bro thing, the idea that sexism is not like a cultural problem or a human choice problem. Sexism is a technical problem, and that the Tomb Raider breast thing was only because of the graphics. Once you had better graphics, they would never have made her with big breasts, and she would never have turned into a sex symbol or anything. And honestly, if Tomb Raider wouldn't even come out, I don't think, for their Ultra system, because like, again, whether or not it would have happened, who knows. But I think that kind of logically and story-wise, you could make a case for like that Tomb Raider would have come out for the Saturn, I guess, whatever, because since they decided the Saturn is more powerful than it was before. Because like Nintendo, the thing they forget is that since Nintendo and Sony have joined forces, they have so much content. They really don't need more, and Sega would be desperate for something. Like, Sony would have all of Nintendo's franchises for one. And again, if it, like, the other thing is that you could say Nintendo grew up or whatever, they forced Mortal Kombat on them, but Nintendo still wouldn't be comfortable with Tomb Raider, especially when Tomb Raider, like Lara Croft, showed up in Playboy. Nintendo, no version of Nintendo in any universe at that point in time is going to be okay with that. Yeah, that's a massive problem in tech culture. People don't recognize the differences between cultural, social problems, and technical problems. They really don't like accepting that humans are no, they don't. And yeah, and so, like, for example, if you again, telling interesting story, Tomb Raider comes out at the Saturn. That's the one untapped thing. People are talking about violence. They aren't talking about sex. And then so now this is the even next step of their, especially since this is the bad girl era of the 90s, right? Like, where comics books were all about sexy girls, and then you had their wave of women in video games, and part of that was just because it's like we can spend all of our money on making sexy women protagonists, because you can't really afford to make sexy women everywhere. So like, and in a way I miss that, where it's like every Resident Evil had a woman, and like we had Parasite Eve, and we had Lara Croft and everything, and we even had Perfect Dark. Oh yeah, for some reason Perfect Dark has a sister in this case, and Lara Croft has a sexy rival. She's got a sexy rival, and Perfect Dark has a sexy rival sister. I don't know when this happened, why this happened in this universe, but for some reason every female-led game has two women who are sexy rivals of each other in this universe. And this universe is great. This is why I love analyzing it. It's so bizarre. And yeah, so like you, but again, you could say, like, for example, what I would do if I was writing this, because again, I just to have an interesting timeline, and because I think it's probably a little more plausible. Okay, so this teaches you like this, they're out of the way of all of the stones, so your stones can't do anything no matter where you throw them here. That like you could have, for example, Tomb Raider comes out for the Saturn, and isn't this interesting? So now you've distracted them all, you can run past them. But if you want to pick up their suitcase, you're gonna have to do the second one. And then so like it becomes a big thing, and horny gamer bros and everything. And then so you could say like, oh, they were working on Mario 64, but they decided to cancel that and use the engine on a third-person Metroid game to compete with Tomb Raider. I mean, their sexy Metro Samus was already in Nintendo, as we've learned. So it's in there somewhere. They really don't like. Oh, okay. I read that comment already, and then that would further the alienation of Miyamoto from the company. The comment does stand repeating. What else? What else happened in this universe that I want to talk about? Oh, there was something.